Lloyd, thanks so much for coming on the Digital Noir Presents live at SouthStart.
Oh, pleasure, mate. Pleasure. Anytime.
How's SouthStart been for you so far?
I've loved it. It's so incredible to see what other people are doing, and especially as a founder and CEO, if you don't get that constant reaffirmment that other people are facing a lot of the same challenges, you can lose sight of your ultimate goal, and then that's when you give up, which is so sad. So many people do that. So
it's been a recurring theme. I think you do feel like you're sort of off on an island sometimes, don't you? And it's really nice to sort of hear the stories and meet the people, even more importantly.
And the other really great thing is that most startups are running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Right? So an event like this, it's over 2 days. You actually get to stop and just smell the roses and enjoy life a little bit. So it's fantastic. I love it.
Were you at the dinner on Wednesday night? Africola?
I was indeed. Yeah.
Enjoy that?
Oh, I love Africola. I'm always amazed at the number of really high quality restaurants and bars and the likes that we have here in Adelaide.
We are spoiled for choice.
I know.
And it's been so nice having, I think, interstate overseas visitors come in and getting them to experience that. And I love that as a part of the few days that they've actually got involved that. And last night at Peel Street the same.
Yes. It's quite sad. Oh, I feel a bit wrong saying this, but it's a bit sad showing the interstate people our secret places like Peel Street. And so long as you didn't take them to Bank Street Social, I'm okay with that.
I think a few of them might have been down at Bank Street Social last night. So
heaven forbid they'll move to Adelaide.
So how long have you been? You've been in Adelaide a long time? Or?
I've been here for almost 13 years. To be honest. Yeah.
What have you seen change in that time?
Well, besides the traffic's got a lot better. No, just the startup community, the embracing technology, just moving forward. That has been incredible to watch. I've been involved in engineering, in research for many years, and it's always been government driven.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden, there's so much support, be it government or VCs or just even angel investors coming on board saying, this is what we want to see happen for the state, and let's make Adelaide do it.
I think it's been quite exciting, seeing some of the non-government investment come in, and because there has been this traditional reliance on government, and especially in some of the, in defence and in some of these high-tech industries. But it's, I think we've talked a lot in the last 2 days about, needing kind of grassroots level and people sort of just, taking risks and trying new things.
Well, one of the amazing things that I've seen is even government itself has been able to step up and take a bit of risk itself.
Yeah, sure.
Right? There's because of my defence background, there's that Defence Innovation Hub and Next Gen Tech Fund, and there's I think $1.5 billion over 10 years that's going into new and exciting research, which is and that's available to every single Australian company out there to put in an application and try and pursue their technology.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So what's it been like for you starting and creating a business here in South Australia?
It's been a bit crazy, right? I look back on the 18 months that it's been, and it's just been, just absolutely crazy. A lot of support. Whenever I've tried to talk to state government about it, for example, I can see how people have just cottoned onto the whole notion of space. Right, being a space startup, it's almost an easy sell.
Sure.
And so it's just been building that momentum has been amazing.
And so tell us a bit more about the startup.
So we've been trying to keep very, very quiet for as long as possible, but you can only do that for so long.
Yeah.
No. So what we're doing is a while ago we identified that there's a $30 billion market out there to get satellites into orbit. Now there's already so many rockets being designed and built to satisfy that need, but there are almost no facilities from which all of those rockets can launch. So that's exactly where my company is coming in. So we're trying to develop the infrastructure, the stuff on the ground, so that companies, both domestic and international, can come to Australia to launch their rockets from our shores. the flow-on effects that has for our, say, satellite manufacturing industry is that they no longer have to wait months before they can get their satellites into orbit. It's weeks or days or weeks type of thing.
So historically, what would that process look like? Like how do you go about finding launch pads or launch areas?
Up until now, it's all been quite fixed. There's only a few around the world that you can use, and they're all consumed, so to speak, by these big rockets, right?
Yep.
And so if you want to just send your little 3 kilogram satellite up into space, you've got to do what's known as a ride share.
Okay.
So there's some big ass satellite going out there.
Catch a lift.
Exactly. And you're hitchhiking, so you get sent into the orbit that they're going.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
Regardless of whether or not that's what you want, that is what you get. And so historically, companies have made these little CubeSats and shipped them off to, say, let's just pick on Cape Canaveral.
Mm-hmm.
And there they've sat on a bench for months, collecting dust with the battery slowly winding down.
Sure.
And just waiting. And the startup in the interim has been burning through cash. So the whole driver now is that if you have a small rocket that only takes a small payload to space, it's there on demand for you. So you come along with your CubeSat, and you take it to the rocket, and so long as you have all the approvals to launch, for argument's sake, regulatory stuff in place, you can launch it as soon as possible.
How much regulatory red tape is there around this? I imagine it's been a nightmare.
We put together a flow diagram, and we had to use very small font, and it just fitted onto A3. So, but it's all for a really good reason. I mean, rockets are very big, and if something does go bad, it goes bad quite badly. So all of the rules and regulations are there to ensure that people and the environment are the safest they can ever be.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And so do you supply the actual rockets as well, or people basically bring in rockets and whatever the payload is over to you?
Fundamentally, it's people bring the rockets to us. Now, because of the skill sets that we're developing within Southern Launch and people who are coming to join us, we will have some of that skill sets to be able to help people with their rockets, be it the basic design, so to speak,
sure,
or some of the electronics that go on board. So yeah.
So your background's in defense, you said?
I spent almost 12 years working defense research, doing artificial intelligence, working in hypersonics, doing all sorts of weird and wonderful and crazy things, and just oh my gosh, it was incredible. So yeah.
So, and what was the catalyst then for Southern Launch? How did you?
I studied space engineering in Sydney, right after the Olympic Games. Okay. Right, and back then there was no such thing as space in Australia. Actually, I take that back. There was Optus, and Optus was building its big satellite, but that was about it. And nothing was really happening in space up until 2, 3, 4 years ago when people really started to talk about space. And then we had the big space conference in Adelaide last year, and that's just a fait accompli then.
And now there's quite a lot happening in the space in the state, right?
Yeah. We're yet to attract or retain a rocket manufacturer, but we have companies developing satellite buses, so the actual chassis.
Okay.
We've got Fleet, Mariota, they're all connecting everyone and doing some fantastic things.
Yeah.
We've got Nauman Space developing little satellite thrusters, and I mean that's just a handful of the startups. Then there's a whole bunch of established companies doing space-related work as well. So it's pretty fantastic.
What's your kind of vision for the future of space?
Oh, I really want us Australia to do something big, right? And fundamentally, that's about. Well, I was going to say get us up off our asses, but in reality it's a bit of that, right? It's proving to ourselves and backing ourselves that we can actually do some of this high-tech work, because it's there for the taking. We have all of those individual building blocks available to us to put to use, and if we don't aim really, really high, we'll just be fighting everybody else.
There's been a common thread, I think, of this need to think big and think bigger than what we currently are. And I think it's a gross generalization, because there's so many. I've spoken to so many people in the last 24 hours that have done incredible things, but I think often, in a city like Adelaide, you kind of do tend to think a bit smaller and a bit local, but.
And there's this terrible, I call it terrible. It's a terrible culture where we don't back ourselves.
Yeah.
We look around the world and we see a whole bunch of, say, NASA's or SpaceX doing some incredible things, and we go, wow, if only we were as good as SpaceX. Now, hang on, what's the difference, right? They're people just like you and I. They speak sort of English. They have been exposed to the same things that we have. So why not? Why not back ourselves and just try? So no, I thought. Yeah.
How does it work in terms of regulation in space at the moment? So if I want to send something into orbit, how do you go about doing that? Can you just shoot it up there?
Well, yes, but you'll get into a lot of trouble. So there's no real governing body that everybody talks to and says, please approve my my satellite, like a UN of space.
Yeah, sure.
No such thing, really. So each country has to put forward or authorize a launch and say that this isn't going to hurt anybody else's satellites up there. So there's going to be no crashes. It's not going to endanger anybody else. And so that's the role of our Australian Space Agency at the moment.
Yep.
And you've got to ensure that all your, if you're going to be broadcasting, you broadcast in the correct frequencies, and it's not going to mess things up. So you've got to follow. You've got to get a launch permit, and you've got to get all of your spectrum licenses, which takes a while, as you can imagine. But it's all very doable.
And what stage is your business? So you're fully operational, or?
In a few weeks' time, in less than 2 weeks' time, we're looking to make a nice little announcement.
Awesome.
Yes,
exciting stuff.
Exciting, because as I said at the start, we've been trying to work under in stealth mode, they like to call it, for as long as possible.
Why have you been working under stealth? Just because it is a competitive market and you want to?
Well, my whole philosophy has always been that if you're going to announce something, make sure that it is set in stone.
Okay.
So you don't ever have to go back and say, actually, we didn't achieve what we wanted to do.
Sure.
So in 2 weeks' time, we will hopefully have dotted the last I and crossed the last T, and things will be literally set in stone about where it is we're going to be having our launch facility.
Exciting. We'll stay tuned for that.
Thanks.
In regards to just space in general, let's look forward 20, 30, 50 years in terms of sort of commerce moving up there, and I've heard people talking about waste disposal being a massive thing. Well, what do you see the sort of space looking like from a commercial point of view, I suppose?
Commercial, I think the real next big thing will be space transport, right? I mean, last year at the space conference in Adelaide, Elon Musk put forward his idea where instead of trying to catch an aircraft and fly for like 23 hours to get to Europe, you'll use one of his rockets, fly out of Sydney, and an hour and a half later you'll land in London. Yeah. Just because once you're out of the atmosphere, you just float in orbit to where you want to be, which I really think will be fantastic.
Incredible.
Because the biggest ecological thing at the moment, that doesn't sound right, but the worst thing we're doing for our environment at the moment is running aircraft. Yep. Right? So if we can get away from all of that, that's perfect, I think.
And would the sort of the trade-off of the actual rocket launch or whatever, that be less carbon emissions than the 24-hour flight?
Yeah. So they want to start exploring greener fuels, so to speak. So and that'll have either no impact on the environment, we'll use biomass fuel or something like that, or have a very reduced impact, which is just fantastic. So
it would be incredible. I mean, imagine if you get to Europe in an hour and a
oh
half.
my gosh, I fly to Europe quite frequently now, discount economy.
Yeah.
And I can promise you now, 23 hours in the back of a plane is a long time to be burning jet fuel. So
You get to travel a bit with your work, or
yes, or to go and meet customers, develop all of those relationships. It's a very small community, so it's all people based. So
beautiful. Oh, thanks so much for taking the time
Pleasure,
to have a
pleasure.
chat with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, gents.
And we'll keep an eye out for the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Joe. Cheers, guys.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Thank you.